Ladies and gentlemen, imagine paying a lakh rupees for an air ticket for your parents flying to the US and then tracking the absolute horror they have been through for the next 30 hours. And ladies and gentlemen, turns out this flight we are talking about from Delhi to San Francisco has still not taken off. This is what has happened and is happening. Air India's flight from Delhi to San Francisco was supposed to carry 200 passengers. It was scheduled to take off yesterday at 3:30. But that isn't the worst part. What is shocking is the way Air India chose to treat its passengers for over 24 hours. Take a look at the pictures on your screens, ladies and gentlemen, and you know what we are talking about. These are passengers, elderly, there are children, hoping and praying that at some point their flight takes off. It still hasn't. Should they be sitting on the floor at the aero bridge, hoping and praying that their flight takes off after paying $1 lakh per ticket? First, they are made to wait because their plane develops a technical glitch. Then, 4 hours later, they are asked to board a plane where the AC is non-functional. In the middle of the heat, ladies and gentlemen, AC is not working. Not surprisingly, people faint inside the plane. The crew has no option but to deboard passengers, and then they are stranded at the aero bridge for over an hour till they are finally allowed to enter the airport terminal. Then at some point, these 200-odd passengers are offered hotel accommodation. They come back from the hotel only to be told that the flight has been rescheduled again. They've been waiting at the airport since 11 today. They're finally put on a flight, but that flight is still on the tarmac. Now, this entire account that we have put out is based on Twitter threads that have been put out by friends and relatives of those who are on board the flight. We are still waiting for Air India's version and will put it out once they speak. Engulfed with angry social media posts, the Aviation Ministry has issued a show-cause notice to Air India. DGCA, the aviation watchdog, has said that the airline has had a series of flight delays and time and again failed to address grievances of passengers. A response has been sought from the airline within 3 days, failing which action will be taken. Let me straight away go to Surendra Kumar, who's a flyer, who's still on the flight. He's still stranded there. Mr. Kumar, thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast. I believe you're still on the tarmac. Your flight has not taken off, is it? सुरेंद्र जी नमस्कार, आपको मेरी आवाज सुनाई दे रही है?
हेलो
ओके, दैट लेडीज एंड नमस्कार सुरेंद्र जी, आपको मेरी आवाज सुनाई दे रही है तो कुड यू टेल मी, आपकी फ्लाइट अभी भी टेक ऑफ नहीं हुई है सर?
हाँ जी, हेलो,
आपकी फ्लाइट अभी तक टेक ऑफ नहीं हुई है सर?
आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
ओके, सो ठीक है, that is Surendra Kumar ji. He's a flyer who's stranded on board that flight. He can't hear me, so I'm going to make one final attempt to speak to him. Surendra Kumar ji, मुझे आपकी आवाज आ रही है. मैं आपसे पूछना चाह रही हूँ, अब क्या हो गया? अब आपकी फ्लाइट टेक ऑफ क्यों नहीं हुई है? कुछ बता रहे हैं क्या एयरलाइन वाले? आप अभी भी टारबैक में हैं? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think there's a network issue. Obviously, he's inside the plane and the plane is still at the tarmac. The very fact that he can still take my call and it's a video call means that the flight is still at the tarmac. Let me quickly go across to my guest this evening. Sanat Kaul is a former Civil Aviation Joint Secretary, Government of India. He is joining us on the broadcast. Jagriti Chandra is a journalist. She writes... She writes on aviation for The Hindu. She's joining us as well. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is the fourth turbulence that has hit Air India in the last 5 months. There have been repeated incidents of passengers' discomfort on Air India flights, some of which made big headlines, as you know. Now, just this year, several fines were imposed on the air carrier for violating norms. In January, Air India was fined 1 crore rupees for violating safety norms on long routes. Then, in February, the so-called Maharaja was fined 30 lakh rupees following an elderly passenger's death at the Mumbai airport. Let me remind you that this 80-year-old had collapsed because of the non-availability of a wheelchair at the airport. and decided that he will walk till the terminal. Is hassle-free flying too much to ask for, especially when you're paying that much? Is airport agony urban India's worst nightmare? That's the question that I'm going to be asking my guests this evening. We did try and get in touch with Surendra Kumarji, who's in that flight. Over 30 hours for that flight to take off. It still hasn't. Sanat Kaul, former Civil Aviation Joint Secretary, Government of India, with us on the broadcast. Jagriti Chandra is a journalist. As I said, she writes for The Hindu. She's joining us as well. Jagriti, you track aviation very closely. Are you getting a sense as to why this flight has been completely mismanaged? We were just trying to speak to a passenger on board. The flight is still at the tarmac. What happened?
Yes, Shreya, you have the information with you is absolutely correct. In fact, a passenger has just texted me and said that apparently the aircraft went all the way up to the runway and has now come back to near the gate. And I was informed by Air India at around 6 p.m. that the aircraft was rolling for takeoff, which is that it was on the runway and preparing for a takeoff. So let me just quickly take you through a chronology of events. And this is what happened yesterday was that this flight was supposed to take off at around 3:30 in the afternoon, but it was already delayed. We have information that apparently the airline did not have an aircraft for this particular flight. So that is why there was some amount of delay. The boarding for this started at around 7 o'clock or so. And just imagine in this sort of blistering heat, bringing an aircraft which was probably standing in the parking bay the whole day, and was probably like a hot tin can. So this aircraft was towed from the remote parking bay to the aero bridge, and boarding started. And as soon as the boarding started, passengers immediately started complaining about how uncomfortable they were feeling, how it was so hot, and there was they could face suffocation as well. So a bit later, about 15 to 20 of them went to the front end of the aircraft. They wanted to have a word with the captain. Though the captain announced that departure would commence shortly, passengers were very stubborn, and they said that there was no way they would allow the aircraft to take off, and they requested, they prayed for help, is what one of the passengers told me, and asked the captain to ensure that they were deboarded from the aircraft. So this was about a 2-hour ordeal inside the aircraft, and then they left the aircraft. They were stuck on the aero bridge for a substantial amount of time. The airline says that they required security clearances to allow the passengers to enter the passenger building, but then that's their version. And finally, passengers reached their hotels at around 1 o'clock or so. That's when they had their dinner. They were informed at about, early in the morning that they would have to depart for a 11 a.m. sort of departure. They would have to start leaving their hotels at about 7:30 or so. But unfortunately, there was a lot of shuttling between the airport and the hotel. Again, the following day, they arrived at the airport. Apparently, what I'm coming to know from my sources is that there was no crew available this time around. Crew, remember, operate under very strict duty time limitations. So there was some issue on that front. And eventually what's going on is that these passengers were inside the plane by around 5 o'clock today. This was the second time they were brought to the airport, but the aircraft has not taken off. We haven't heard from the airline about what is exactly transpiring, but I know that at around 5 o'clock it was to take off.
Can I just interrupt you here, because Sandeep Kumarji is a stranded flyer and he is joining us as well on the broadcast. So let's see if I can get through to him. Sandeep Kumarji, can you hear me? आपको मेरी आवाज सुनाई दे रही है? आप अभी भी प्लेन के अंदर हैं और आप मुझे बताइए, आपको कुछ बताया जा रहा है कि क्यों आपकी फ्लाइट दोबारा वापस आ गई है टारमैक पे?
मैम वो कह रहे कि एयर प्रेशर सही नहीं है, मतलब एयर टेम्परेचर सही नहीं है मैम, और हम लोग कल से मतलब ये ऐसे सफर कर रहे हैं। हमें कल यहाँ पे फ्लाइट में अंदर मतलब 2 घंटे बिठा रखा 51 टू अराउंड लाइक 51 to 52 I think degree Celsius the Fahrenheit was temperature here, and you can see the video here live. All people are here is suffering. AC is not working even though from yesterday, and it's the same plane. I think something is wrong with the airline, and see the how old people are suffering. They are not getting anything. We are come from morning. I think from 8 o'clock. See, the few only the business class are getting something. I think the rest of you can see there.
नहीं
So
संदीप,
all
आप मुझे
old people.
बता रहे हैं, are you telling me that the AC is still not working inside the plane?
Yes, ma'am. You can see me right now. I'm sweating here. Just like a hot wind is coming right.
हाँ.
गरम हवा सब गरम
and
हवा आ
are
रहे
they,
हैं.
is the airline saying, and is the airline saying anything about when they'll be able to take off, या आपको दोबारा अब डिबोर्ड कराया जाएगा?
पता नहीं मैम, अभी तक कोई आइडिया नहीं. मतलब वो मतलब दोबारा ये चीजें बता रहे हैं कि हमें कि अभी 10 मिनट में हो रहा है, कैप्टन बोल रहे 5 मिनट में हो रहा है, 10 मिनट में हो रहा है, एंड देन अगेन बस वो बोल रहे बस 5 मिनट 10 मिनट, एंड दे जस्ट गिविंग अस एक्सक्यूज ओनली मैम.
एंड ये काफी एल्डरली लोग, आप जो भी वीडियो मुझे लाइव दिखा रहे हैं प्लेन के अंदर से, इसमें मुझे एल्डरली लोग दिख रहे हैं, इसमें मुझे लेडीज दिख रही हैं. मुझे बताइए कि पिछले 30 घंटे से ये जो पूरा ड्रामा है पूरा चल रहा है, आपको कभी प्लेन में बोर्ड कराया, फिर डीबोर्ड कराया, फिर होटल भेजा, फिर वेट कराया, फिर बोर्ड कराया, अब फिर वापस फ्लाइट टारमैक पे आ गई है. ये एक्सपीरियंस आप लोगों के लिए और बाकी पैसेंजर्स के लिए कैसा रहा है?
मैम हम लोग मतलब इतने सफर हो रखे हैं कि कल से ये देखिए यहाँ पे भी वैसे है. यहाँ पे इतने ओल्ड लोग हैं, बुजुर्ग लोग जितने भी हैं, बड़े ओल्ड एज लोग जितने भी हैं, देखिए. तो यहाँ पे सब ये चीजें हम लोग बैठे हुए हैं. बस हम ये नहीं चाहते कि ये भी कल की तरह कैंसिल हो. देखिए यहाँ पे ये सारी चीजें हो रही हैं हमारे साथ, और तो कुछ नहीं है. देखिए हमारी ग्रैनी जी भी यहीं पे. हम लोग कल से सफर कर रहे हैं.
अच्छा, तो अब आपको उम्मीद है कि ये फ्लाइट, आपको अब उम्मीद है कि ये फ्लाइट चलेगी, या आपको लग रहा है कि अब इसे कैंसिल हो जाना चाहिए?
मैम हम तो यही चाहते हैं कि कैंसिल ही हो जाए. नो मैम, थैंक यू. हम लोग को रिफंड करें. नहीं ऐसे हम लोग यही चाहते हैं कि ये बस अब कैंसिल ही हो जाए मैम, क्योंकि ये सेकंड टाइम हो गया हमारे साथ, और हम लोग ऐसा लग रहा है कि वी आर नॉट फील सेफ टू ट्रैवल, बिकॉज क्योंकि बहुत सारी फ्लाइट्स आ रही
पायलट
हैं,
से
जा
आप
रही है.
लोगों की बात हो पाई है? पायलट कुछ आपसे बोल रहे हैं?
पायलट बोल रहे हैं अभी 5 मिनट बोल रहे थे, अभी आधा घंटा हो गया. अभी
ठीक है. और आप टारमैक में कब से हैं? 2 घंटे से आप लोग टारमैक में स्ट्रैंडेड हैं?
जी मैम, हम लोग 6 बजे से अंदर हैं. 6 बजे से एंटर कर चुके थे. 6 बजे पहले तो 6 बजे 3 बजे पहले हमारी फ्लाइट थी 11 बजे की सुबह की, तो हम लोग सुबह से आए हुए हैं.
चलिए
तो हम
संदीप
लोग
कुमार जी, हमसे जुड़ने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
ओके मैम.
I do hope that your flight takes off, but given what you have been telling us and given what we have seen in the last 34 hours, I highly doubt it will. Sandeep Kumar, thank you very much for joining us. Jagrati, you've just heard from Sandeep Kumar that flight has still not taken off. Can you help me understand why an airline would want to have its reputation shred the way Air India's reputation is being shred because of this flight? Why not simply cancel the flight? If you can't carry these passengers from Delhi to San Francisco, cancel it instead of making them wait for 34 hours and making them go through the sort of trauma we are seeing right now on our screens.
Yes, Shreya. I mean, canceling is also not an easy decision for the airline, but they have to weigh the pros and cons. This is really egg on their faces. If they've just brought this aircraft back from the runway, and considering that these passengers are under arrested, they were here about 24 hours back at the same place. Let me just give you a few details about this particular aircraft. The aircraft that has been pressed into operation today is the same that was brought yesterday. It's a Boeing 777 aircraft. It's as old as nearly 15 years. And its registration mark is VTALG. So, there were problems with cooling the aircraft. We do not know, whether there is an engineering malfunction or whether the equipment that was attached to the aircraft for cooling was inadequate to cool the aircraft. But airline the spokesperson told me that there were certain technical malfunctions with this particular aircraft. So the question that I will be asking as a reporter is, why was the same aircraft then deployed the following day? I believe that there was a newer aircraft that was initially planned for this particular flight.
Absolutely. Sanat Kaul, you're a former Civil Aviation Joint Secretary. Can you help me understand this behavior? How can you take a paying customer, a paying passenger for a ride like this? How can any airline do it?
Well, frankly, I don't think I can explain that because it's very unfortunate, and what is happening should not happen at all. Only thing I can say in general is that Air India has purchased, Tata's have purchased Air India, and Air India was in a terrible condition when they bought it. They were persuaded to buy it. And as a result, they are not able to cope. But let me say also one thing, that Air India had said that we'll take 4 years to rectify it. That's what I think was said. It's been over 2.5 years. Now, let's not take this decision. I know somebody who just came back from Europe on Air India, and he said the seats were not working, the entertainment system was not working, and he also said that the food was lousy. Now, I don't know why this is happening, but Air India has to accept responsibility. There's no way by which they can keep delaying these things. It's happening far too often in Air India flights. They have to reinvent the airline.
That's true.
The airline has so many defects. It has union problems. It has old aircraft. It's got pure old engineering issues. But they have to sort it out. I mean, just can't allow this kind of a thing to happen again, which is happening anyhow.
By the looks of it, and what has happened since the beginning of this year, first we see a drunk passenger urinate on a co-passenger, the crew completely mishandles it, then you have an elderly gentleman denied a wheelchair at the airport by Air India, walks and simply collapses, dies at the airport itself. Now you have something like this that is playing out. So this is certainly egg on Air India's face. Vinod Gopal, your uncle and aunt, and they are elderly, they are almost 80 years old, are in this flight as well. Vinod ji, ये तो फ्लाइट हमें पहले बताया गया था 6 बजे की इट इज टेकिंग ऑफ, लेकिन वो तो अभी भी टारमैक पे है. आपसे आपके रिलेटिव्स ने कांटेक्ट किया, क्या कह रहे हैं वो लोग?
बहुत ज्यादा परेशान है अपनी सेहत के होते, अभी वो बहुत फटीग महसूस कर रहे हैं. अभी हमें भी चिंता हो गई है क्योंकि उनके पास दवा भी कुछ 1-2 दिन वाली थी. अभी हमें ये लग रहा है कल से वो जाग ही रहे हैं. तो इस एज में उनको डायबिटीज है, उनको हार्ट प्रॉब्लम है, तो वो कैसे इसको कोप अप कर पाएंगे पता नहीं. हमें बहुत ज्यादा फिक्र हो रही है उनकी और बहुत ज्यादा परेशान है इस वक्त. अभी जब भी ये प्लेन वापस आया, अभी उसने फ्लाई करने की कोशिश नहीं कर पाया. अभी तो वो बहुत ज्यादा परेशान, बहुत ज्यादा. हम नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं कि इसको कैंसिल करवा के उनको वापस ले आए, क्या करें. वहां जाना था, वहां का प्रोग्राम खराब हो गया है. बहुत ज्यादा परेशानी में है. अब ये हमें समझ नहीं आ रहा, इतनी जिम्मेदार एयरलाइन, ये हालात सोच भी नहीं सकते आप. कैसे कर सकता है 2-4-5 घंटे बंदा कोई फ्लाइट लेट हो जाती है, 27-28 घंटे, और अभी भी नहीं पता कि क्या होगा. अनसर्टन है इस वक्त, हम बिल्कुल अनसर्टन है. और फ्लाइट आप एयर इंडिया को फोन करो, वो कहेंगे जी ये तो जी कॉल सेंटर है, हमें कुछ नहीं मालूम, आप अपने पैसेंजर से बात करो एयरपोर्ट में, वो बताएंगे। एयरलाइन कुछ बता ही नहीं रही है, वो पैसेंजर है, वो मौके पे क्या पूछेंगे, वहाँ हंगामा हो रहा है, कुछ बताते नहीं है, कुछ क्लैरिटी नहीं है, बड़ी बुरी तरह से परेशान है। अब पता नहीं कैसे कब
Jagrati
जाएगी
Chandra, are you
जाएगी या नहीं
hearing
जाएगी।
from the airline at all?
नथिंग, कुछ भी नहीं है हमारे
Jagrati,
पास।
is it? It's very curious.
हाँ,
आपके
कुछ भी
पास
नहीं
कोई
है।
communication नहीं है, Jagrati, even as
नहीं।
journalists, I believe you've been trying to get in touch with Air India for a response. Air India has still not said anything officially. I mean, this is a fit case where passengers should probably sue the airline. That doesn't happen in India, but maybe there needs to be a first. Given that passengers have fainted, given that passengers have waited more than 30 hours for this flight to take off, and it is yet to take off as we speak. The pictures are on our screens, and again, the air conditioning is not working. And let's not forget, it is 45, 46, 47 degrees in Delhi right now.
Yes, Shreya, you should, recall what happened last year. There was an incident where an Air India flight was forced to divert to Russia. This was at the peak of the tensions, and it apologized to the customers and also offered to refund them their air tickets. So the response that we've seen in the past, when there were a large number of foreign passengers involved, or when there is a global sort of glare on Air India, the response is different. But when its own passengers are concerned, when Indians are concerned, it seems to be taking the matter very lightly. This really shows a collapse of coordination across several divisions. In an airline, you have the commercial division, which decides on route and network planning, etc. There's the operations, which decides on cockpit crew and their, say FDTL, their timing, all those issues. Then there is engineering. So, and then there is the team at the airport, which is supposed to handle passenger grievances and ensure that, in a situation like that, like the one that we've seen today and yesterday, passengers are provided help promptly. So there has been a collapse across all these departments. So a total
collapse.
failure on part of Air India.
A total failure on part of Air India. Let's see how they respond to it. Over 30 hours, no response from them. We leave it there for the moment, ladies and gentlemen. What a harrowing time for these passengers who, as we speak, are on board, who are inside the airplane. The plane taxis and then returns to the tarmac. Again, we are being told the ACs are not working. There is some problem with air pressure. God bless us all. Sanat, Kaul, thank you very much for joining us. Jagrati Chandra, thank you very much. And Vinod Gopalji, thank you very much for joining us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. There's more on the other side. Do stay with us.